Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
First one titled, I left 40 guys standing in the rain after a 12-hour shift. Up until fairly recently, I worked as a camp bus driver in a major industrial area. What my duties were was to pick people up from the camp where they lived for a certain amount of time. I was 2 weeks in, 1 week out, and take them into the plant and drop them off at a variety of drop-off areas depending on what their job was, then pick up anyone that was returning to the camp for their rest period. Now, there were certain designated areas for the buses to pick up and drop off, a bus stop, and only buses were supposed to be parked in those areas. The issue was that people would keep parking their work pickup in the bus areas and block us off. We kept asking them to not do that, they kept doing it, and eventually it all boiled over when a higher up in the company started giving us crap over picking people up out of the designated areas because people kept blocking the areas with pickups. We explained why we did it and the higher up promised to do something about it, but never did. The second time that higher up gave us shit over picking people up out of our designated areas, my manager told us, the bus drivers, that the next time this happened that we should let him know via radio and then just leave. So that's what I did. Now, we didn't just spring this on our passengers. We made sure that every single one of them knew that the next time it was blocked off, that the bus would just continue on its way and leave them behind. When I spread the news to my passengers, I heard a lot of laughter and could tell that they didn't believe me. However, the next day, it happened again. There were pickups in our areas once again, and like the good little minion I did as I was directed, got on the radio to my manager, let him know what was happening, and left. I understand that there was a number of interesting phone calls afterwards. But we never had a problem with pickups in our areas afterwards. Next one is titled, Adorably Malicious. With Valentine's Day is coming up, my best little malicious compliance always comes up. I wasn't trying to be mean, but it was definitely intended to mess with her. In the before time, the long ago year of 2018, my wife and I were talking about our Valentine's Day plans, being our second ever and the first one going very underwhelming for her, doesn't fit the rules, and I asked her what she wanted to do and what she had in mind as a gift idea. She hates going to restaurants, so she opted for a lavish home-cooked meal. When I asked her what she wanted, she said, something cheesy, and off I went. I headed straight for a plus-sized version of a famous Texas grocery store and started to look around. Of course I got the heart-shaped chocolates and the bear with a heart and a little cheesy card. Then headed for the artisan cheeses. Over the last couple of years I had become aware that there were more than 5 cheeses and had it in my mind to put together a small but funny cheese basket and be done. You know how you see something enough times you just become blind to it. And did you know you could purchase one of those giant cheese wheels that look like they're just there for decoration? So the day comes and I hand her gifts one by one. The card got a little smile, the bear and chocolates were the staple Hallmark Channel gifts. Then I pretended to delicately grab the very pretty, very large bag on the floor. I made sure to make it look like I was holding something fragile and then dropped it on the table in front of her with a loud thud. It almost fell off the table and onto her, but I was able to catch it. She tore at the bag and almost fell off her chair, laughing at the 20-pound wheel of Gouda that stood before her. It took us weeks to get through it all, and she's been a little more specific with her ideas ever since. Next one is titled, Oh, you want me to park in my driveway and block everyone? You got it, neighbor. This just happened 2 nights ago, and it struck me how I didn't think to post it here. Tuesday, we had a snowstorm in my province, yay, Canada, and we received 20 to 25 centimeters of snow, approximately 0.8 foot of snow. The snow is not the problem. The problem is the snow removal. The neighbors have a shitty contract with a shitty company who blew the snow in front on their driveway. I live in a 5-apartment complex. Behind the complex is a 3-spot parking for the other residents. My boyfriend and I both have a spot to park, which is a 2-car long vertical parking besides the complex. We share that big driveway with the neighbors on our left, with a gap in between for the cars parked behind to get in or get out. Well, Wednesday afternoon, I come back from work and imagine my surprise when I see this big-ass snow mountain. As my boyfriend's car is parked where I am right now, I can't park on my usual spot in front of him. I'll block everyone from leaving or entering. I go park in the streets, but since there has been a snowstorm and the snow removal process is starting that night, I can't stay there for the night, or I'll get a ticket. My neighbor Y downstairs decides to call the owner of the complex on our left and he says, yes, she can park in front of the snow on our side. I do that. 2 hours later, an old lady rings everyone's bells in my apartment complex and demands to speak with the black car's owner. I get down. The conversation goes like this: old lady, are you the owner of this car? Me, I am indeed. Is it problematic? Oh, it is. This is my parking spot. My daughter comes regularly to visit me and I need this spot. This is my spot. You have no right to park over there. Mind you, there's no one parked there. Only her husband has a car and his spot is behind the complex. Her daughter will not visit tonight nor tomorrow morning, nor in the next weeks, since no one can come visit anyone anymore. The pandemic rules are pretty strict where I am. Me, I'm sorry, ma'am. The owner of your complex said it was okay. Oh, I'm so tired of fighting with everyone. I always fight with everyone. This is not your spot, kid. I'm trying to explain how I will block the passage if I park in my driveway. I keep asking her to look at the snow. It blocks anyone entering or exiting if I take my usual spot. Oh, I don't care. I do not care. You take that car and park in your own driveway. Me, but I will block the pass. Oh, I don't care. You park in your driveway or go in the streets. This is your problem. Me, I will not get a ticket when your owner said it was Oh, you leave immediately or I call the police, blah blah. I shut the door, ducking mad. Fine. I'll park in my spot and I'll block the whole driveway, ma'am. I simply do that. The thing is, 2 of my neighbors work from home. My boyfriend has a day off on Thursday. The old couple downstairs are retired and the other one takes the bus. I simply don't block anyone, except for the complex on our left. Thursday morning, who wants to get out at 6:30 and honks loudly in the parking lot? Old lady and her husband, whose parking spot is behind the complex, not even on the side. You got me. I could have parked there, it would have made no difference. I go downstairs, pajamas, coat half zipped and wet hair. I wave and smile. Your car is blocking the entry, she yells through the down window. I know. You asked me to park in my driveway, which I did. I see her husband on the driver's seat, looking at her like, Janet, not again? She rages a little bit and says, fine, go in my driveway if you ducking want. I need to go to work now, I'm late. Of course, ma'am, thank you ma'am. I simply smiled and got in my car, rewinded, let them pass and parked in her driveway. Oh joy. This morning, my boyfriend and I left for work. When I came back, I took his spot. Tonight, she'll be happy to see no one is parked in her driveway, until my boyfriend comes back home. Next one is titled, You Didn't Say I Couldn't Give Her Taffy. So I work in a very famous chocolate store in NYC. We have a machine where if you pull a lever, candy comes out. We have different types of chocolate as well as taffy. The taffy part will be important later. One day 3 people walk up to me while I'm running the machine, 2 women and a child. I give my speech about the machine and give out a free sample of random candy. Of course, this was in the good old days. One of the women stopped me from giving chocolate to the child. She has been bad all day. Don't give her any chocolate. First of all, no one tells me what to do if they do not work at my store. Second of all, I am not really the malicious compliance type. But when I'm in the mode for it, I look at the woman and ask, so no chocolate? You heard me. I said no. Okay, no chocolate it is. I proceed to give this little girl a liberal amount of taffy and non-chocolate candies. The little girl just started giggling. I said don't give her any candy. She snapped. No, I responded. You said not to give her any chocolate. I just gave her taffy. She glared at me the entire she was by the candy machine, while me and that little girl had the biggest smile on our face. I didn't get in any trouble or anything, but she did say that I'm never coming here again. Whatever, Karen. Next one is titled, Rip Off Customers? Nope. In the early 1990s I worked for a company that for deniability let's call Pizza Shack. Back then it was a pretty good job. Making pizzas, eating pizzas and shooting the crap was basically the whole job. I was there for about 1 year when the place started making some changes. The first was that we were no longer making pizza dough. The dough would come frozen in discs that we would essentially just proof for longer. The quality of the food suffered, but at the time I didn't care because prepping dough was a shitty job anyway. The other was the introduction of new pizzas in the Lovers line. The meat one we had for a while before I started, and it was a good deal. But the pepperoni Lovers and especially the cheese Lovers pizza was a huge rip-off. Both were essentially just double topping. Literally a cheese Lovers was a pizza with extra cheese. We didn't have the cheese blend yet, and the pepperoni Lovers was a double pepperoni. But since they were specialty pizzas, we charged a huge price bump. Literally the same for a meat Lovers, pepperoni, beef, pork blend, Italian sausage and bacon, or the supreme, pepperoni, sausage, mushrooms, onions and green peppers. This did not sit well with the big dog. You could get a pepperoni Lovers for the cost of a 2-topping and a cheese Lovers for the cost of a 1-topping. We were told by management to upsell the customers on the new Lovers lines as much as we can. But I had a problem with this ethically. I had started as a line cook, but eventually I transitioned to cashier and we answered the phones. Cue the malicious compliance. Every time I answered a call and someone wanted a cheese pizza, I obligingly upsold them by saying, "Would you like to get a cheese Lovers instead?" And then they asked the price and I would say, "Well, you could get the same thing for an extra cheese." Every customer asked me why I said that, and I told them that I'm not comfortable overcharging my customers. I probably contributed more in goodwill than the Lovers line ever actually made. Next one is titled, "You Don't Want to Be a Lifeguard? Leave Then." This story comes from the last time I, 22 male, was a lifeguard. I was 19 at the time, and I had worked for the same pool company for 2 summers before this, so I was finally getting promoted to assistant manager, so the pay was better. However, the company moved me from my nicer, modern pool, to a pool that's so old, it's actually a historical landmark for my town. It was made in the 1950s. Let me tell you, this pool was awful. It had no consistent working filtration system, the wiring for the pumps was shorty and sometimes gave us a shock, and there was a sinkhole to be underneath the kiddie pool. It would be almost empty every morning I came in. To make matters worse, this hell pool usually takes 4 guards to maintain, but this year to cut corners, they assigned 2. Me and my manager, 19 male, let's call him Chris, put up with this for a while. We'd have to come in early and stay late to take care of this monstrosity, which was recommended to us by the president of the pool board, not the pool company. The pool board hires the company to guard and care for the pool. The president, I'm gonna call him Kevin, it's fitting, was an idiot, but as long as we did what he said, he'd be quiet. However, after 3 or so weeks, Chris and I realized our extra work wasn't being paid for anymore. The pool company owner, Karen, told us that the extra work was not approved, even though Kevin told us to work the extra time. We agreed, and never worked any extra time. Regular patrons understood this new dynamic. We get there when the pool time opens, and the moment the pool is closed, they've got to go. Kevin, however, hated this. He and his pool board got so angry at us, he threatened to fire us. When we brought this up to our company, who we thought would defend us, Karen said, "That's the pool board, we don't control them, if you don't like it, then leave." So we decided to do just that. Chris and I went to work the next day, knowing it would be our last at that pool. We said our goodbyes to the nice patrons, and come close, Kevin was irate again. We didn't listen to him as we closed up, and again he threatened to fire us. We respond, "You can't fire us if we quit," dropped the keys at his feet, and walked out. Chris and I then both wrote emails to Karen, giving her our 2 weeks' notice. For over the past 3 years of working there, they haven't been so kind to us. The next morning, both Chris and I received phone calls asking us to come in together, as we were the only 2 people working at that pool. We show up to the office expecting to be chewed out, but instead Karen begged us to stay, and offered us both manager positions at any pool we wanted next year. Chris and I looked at each other with a grin, as I turned back to her and say, "We didn't like it, so we're leaving," and walked out the door. Afterwards, we got pizza and joked about how awful that company was and how we'd never work for them again. Spoiler, Chris caved and worked for them for the next 3 years. But giving both Karen and Kevin that mic drop moment still makes me smile to this day. Next one is titled, Walked Out of Work in the Middle of a Training Exercise. So I work in an industrial setting. Fairly automated, but my job is to control the system's automation and how they work together with each other. So the other day my supervisor decides to start a train exercise, starting up an area that wasn't running, a half hour before my 12-hour shift was set to end. 25 minutes later we're barely halfway though, and I ask my trainer if they're going to pay me overtime to stay late union gig. He says it's not really up to him. So he tried to get a hold of my actual manager. Had it been my old boss I would have just stayed and I know he would have made me whole. But my new boss seems to be on a bit of a power trip lately. She has made a huge stink about me and others not wanting to cover overtime shifts on our weekends. It's our right to refuse that work and we don't owe the company anything. So as you probably guessed, I just left when my regular shift was set to end. The following day my boss was quite peeved. I told her this is where I work, not volunteer. Last one is titled, Can I Help You Now? I used malicious compliance to help people, rather than inconvenience them. So it's a benevolent compliance, I guess? To fully understand this story, we have to understand the Good Samaritan laws in Canada. These laws can pretty much be the malicious compliance of a first aider's utility belt, as it allows us to help people who don't want to be helped. Good Samaritan laws offer legal protection to people who give reasonable assistance to those who are, or whom they believe to be, injured, ill, in peril, or otherwise incapacitated. These laws in Canada protect you while you are performing first aid, and something that all volunteer first responders should be familiar with. However, there are a lot of nuances involving the Good Samaritan laws that you are required to follow. For example, much of the wording within the law is worded specifically so that you still require certification to perform the first aid. If you screw up while performing first aid, and don't have proper certification, you can be held liable. Another instance where the Good Samaritan laws come into play is that in best interests of the plaintiff is commonly used. Some of the first things you do as a first aider when you arrive on a scene is ensure it is safe for you to be there, attract attention, and introduce yourself to the victim. Hi, my name is Kole Karmat and I'm a first responder, can I help you? Get the heck out of my face. I don't need your help, says the person on the ground with an amputated leg and losing an extraordinary amount of blood. Now, in the law's eye, that person has stated that it is in his best interest to lie on the ground and bleed out. There are some things that can overrule this, such as a medical alert bracelet with do not resuscitate, such as a guardian saying otherwise, but at that point, my hands are tied. Most I can do is call an ambulance and possibly follow the person, but I cannot directly help that person. Unless of course, the situation changes. If the person falls unconscious, you are good to go in most situations. Again, there are rare occasions that I personally never encountered where you still can't help the person, but I can't recall them. While the person is unconscious, even if they fell unconscious after telling you they don't want help, the law assumes it is that person's best interest to help him. Keep in mind this event happened 10 years ago, so things may have changed since then. This is the part the malicious compliance comes into play. In most situations, you know the person is only going to worsen his condition. You could continue to insist that you help him, or you could just wait for the inevitable to happen. Sometimes, the latter is required to not worsen the situation or put yourself or others in harm's way. This leads to some rather interesting situations. Me is me, the first aider assisting me, there is the security of the park, the patient and the girlfriend of the patient. Everything is recorded on tape, since I have horrible bad handwriting. Rather than writing a patient care sheet, I would provide the paramedics with a voice recording of events. It's not as efficient as I need to find a chance to transfer the recording, but it leagues better than my actual, unreadable handwriting, especially under stress. A lot of the time, it's just as easy to stop by the hospital ambulance depot to pick up my recorder from them if I was alone, or have a bystander write the patient care sheet for me. As such, the events are fairly accurate, despite this occurring 10 years ago. I keep all my recordings just in case something comes up. The scene was at a public campsite, some distance away from civilization. I was technically not on duty, I was on vacation, but someone called for help at one of the camp lots. I arrived and found a man, probably late 20s, at the base of a tree, blood coming from his head and a large gash down his arm. I asked the lady what happened and she explained her boyfriend fell out of the tree while he was hanging up a tarp to protect from an upcoming storm. At this point I realized two things: A. Possible head and spinal injury, secure the head immediately. B. Girlfriend is not on the list of people who can give me permission to assist this person. Another first aider showed up at this point, and I went to introduce ourselves. Me: Hi, my name is Cole Karma and this is first aider, we are first responders, can we help you? Patient: No, I can handle this myself. Girlfriend: Just let them help, I saw his card. Patient: No, just let me lie here and collect myself. Me: Okay, well, if it's okay with you, girlfriend, can we stay nearby in case things get worse? Girlfriend: Of course. Girlfriend went boil some water for hot chocolate and coffee for me and first aider, giving us constant updates of patient's condition. Seems she had some first aid training too, but only the bare bones. First aider ran to use the public phone to call an ambulance. During the time first aider was gone, patient fell unconscious. I went up to him and asked the unconscious body, "Can I help you now?" No response. I start working. I showed the girlfriend how to secure the head properly as first aider was still not back, and started looking for more injuries. There was also a puncture wound on his hip where a branch was sticking in, but it was superficial compared to everything else. I started with the head as the injury seemed more severe and made a bandana out of a towel. 5 minutes later, there is a gut-wrenching scream. "What the frick are you doing?" I turn around and saw that patient had woken up. Girlfriend is trying to calm him down and stop his head from moving. But he was fuming. Patient: I told you I didn't need any help. I'm fine. Girlfriend: You're not thinking straight. Insert lovey-dovey stuff here. Me: Sir, please stop moving. We don't know if your neck or spine is broken. Patient: Okay, fine, I won't move, but take this damn scarf off my head. I look like a racist slur. Oh great, the last thing I wanted to deal with. Me: Are you sure? You are bleeding pretty badly. The patient started cussing and swearing. I have my rights, I'll have you arrested and charged. Etc., etc. So, I removed the bandage. Blood started flowing freely from the wound again, and already his face was getting paler. It was at that point first aider arrived with security. First aider: Ambulance will be roughly a half hour. How is patient? You called a frickin' ambulance. Security: Please sir, calm down. You could aggravate your condition, this guy wasn't being picked up well on the recording. Patient: Frick that, I'm not paying for that. Me: It doesn't cost anything for them to perform an examination on you. Patient: You're not making me. At that point, there is a brief pause in the recording, and my voice comes over. Me: My name is Cole Karma and I'm a medical first responder, can I help? Can you hear me? Patient attempted to violently move his head. He immediately fell unconscious. Restarting first aid. First aider: Can you secure the head? Security: Can you get an AED just in case? Girlfriend: In your first aid kit there was a booklet. Get that and copy down what I tell you. At that point I guess I turned off the recording as that was the end of it. I remember the patient started fading into and out of consciousness, each time flying into a fit when he woke up. We just stood back and let him have his temper tantrum before he went back unconscious. When the ambulance arrived he had been unconscious at that point for 10 minutes, so we thought he was down for the count. Come to find out, he was from the USA, where medical bills were insane. Hence the reason why patient was so insistent on not getting help. He thought I was going to charge him for my first aid. I didn't even think that was a thing. I was just doing it because I knew how to. Me and the girlfriend stayed in contact via email for a short while. He was diagnosed with a concussion and internal bleeding. There was a chance he was going to suffer permanent damage, but he managed to pull through. He later on apologized to behavior, but I just brushed it off. You do stupid things while you're suffering from trauma, so I told him it wasn't his fault. I still have a card the pair sent as a thank you. Thanks for being stubborn enough to save my life. I don't think I saved the guy's life, but I do think it could have been worse than it was. Thanks for listening.